Now to our continuing coverage of the commuter crisis on the Washington Bridge. The change in presidential administration in D.C. means blue states like Rhode Island will lose some connections at the federal level.
So what does that mean for those really big, high-priced projects like the Washington Bridge and offshore wind? ABC6 News reporter Caitlin Gelhaus went to find out.
Even as Rhode Island Democrats celebrated big wins in the Ocean State Tuesday night, the transition from the Biden to Trump administration means our elected officials will lose some key connections in the White House.
I'm disappointed. A lot of people in Rhode Island are, but a lot of people are happy with the result, right?
It comes as federal money pours into the state to help demolish the old westbound side of the Washington Bridge and build a new one. McKee says he's hopeful funding that's already been announced for the bridge will stay on track.
Well, I talked to the Senate, both the congressional delegation, about that earlier today, and they have a plan to make sure that those dollars stay, that are committed, stay committed to the Washington Bridge.
Offshore wind, another talking point as Rhode Island buys in for wind energy. President-elect Donald Trump pledging to remove offshore wind projects on day one in office.
But if his intent is to undermine offshore wind, then he's making a mistake both economically and also environmentally. We have to do all we can.
We also heard from Mayor Mitchell's office in New Bedford Thursday morning, a spokesman saying there is uncertainty and concern about how a new Trump administration will handle federal funding and approvals for those projects. And as the Senate changes hands, Rhode Island loses a little more influence. Senator Reed will have to hand over the chairman's seat on the powerful Armed Services Committee to a Republican. And the election of Donald Trump could also have big impacts on how the U.S. uses your tax dollars to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia.
Well, I'm very much concerned about the funding for Ukraine. As you know, we passed in the Senate on a strong bipartisan basis funding for Ukraine, but it was held up for 6 months, principally by then candidate Trump. I hope he recognizes the need to support the Ukrainian people.
One more Rhode Island note, with the Biden administration packing up and leaving the White House, so too will former Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo, who spent much of her time working on the CHIPS Act as Commerce Secretary in Biden's 4-year term. Caitlin Gelhaus, ABC6 News.